Call the September 3rd board meeting of the Carver County Board of Commissioners. Join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you. Item 1C is public comments. Anybody that has some words they'd like to share with the board, now is the time to come to the podium. Identify yourself and welcome.
Thank you. Can I move this?
Yes, of course. It's easier to move the mic than to raise or lower the platform.
Hi, my name is Monique LaCroix. I want to thank you for the opportunity for public comment at the beginning of your board meetings. I'm a Chaska resident and I have lived here for 20 years. I'm here to give a public testimony on our free and fair elections in Carver County. In Minnesota, we believe that every voter should have a voice in shaping their community. We are proud to lead the nation in voter turnout and believe that no one, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, or what party they support, should face harassment, violence, or fear when casting their vote. That's why I decided to get involved with our election process on the local level so I could see firsthand how the process works and help in whatever way I'm able. Meanwhile, there are organizations funded by very wealthy individuals spreading lies about our elections to divide us from our neighbors so they can maintain power. We know our elections are safe, easy, and secure, and there are many safeguards in place to ensure that every vote counts. This is the first election that I have had the privilege of serving as an election judge. I went to the training and went home to study the manual and rewatch the training video because it was so much to take in. The process was very well organized, and I was surrounded by people who were very experienced and ready to help me as a newbie. I was impressed with the detailed directions for every scenario that might come up. I was also very impressed with the many nonpartisan rules regarding our conduct and responses to the conduct of others. At every opportunity to help a voter in any way, 2 judges had to be present, one from each major party. Since it was the primary and not very busy, I was able to get hands-on training on every aspect of the voting process that I will be involved in. So I feel very confident and reassured that our elections are conducted in a very secure and diligent way. We know our neighbors in Minnesota. They serve as election judges, like me, and we are trained to honor voting rights and ensure our elections run smoothly. Whether our local election judges are students or in their 90s, they are trusted community members who are here to serve our democracy. Here in Minnesota, we refuse to be divided based on our age, race, or political ideology. That's why neighbors are coming together to defend our freedom to vote. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for those positive words. Anybody else wish to address the board this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda. The agenda review and adoption. The one thing to add to the agenda this morning is 5.19 to the consent agenda.
Move approval, sir, Chair.
With that addition, we have a motion by Commissioner Uterman. Second by Commissioner Workman to approve the agenda. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, or hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Excuse me. Item number 3, to approve the minutes of the August 20th regular session.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Fahey to approve the minutes of the August 20th meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Community announcements. Commissioner Fahey.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just wanted to say I survived the 163rd Annual Stiftons Fest last week in August.
It was nice that you sobered up.
Yeah. Just a thank you to the Fest Committee, the fire department, and all the volunteers. Just an awesome sense of community out in the western part of Carver County. Also, I ran into former employee Diane Wabi, and I just wanted to give a shout out to her. It was good to see that she was extremely relaxed and just enjoying her time with her grandkids.
Are you saying working for the county can be stressful?
Just a little bit, Mr. Chair. Also, I stopped in at the Cologne Food Shelf in their new location now, which is more downtown in the old, they call it the liquor store, which before that was the old UFC building, which before that was the old gas station in Cologne. And it really feels like a grocery store in there, and they served 40 families on Friday, August 30th, which was a new record for that facility. So they're doing great things there. Also, a reminder, Steamboat Days this weekend in Carver. If you get an opportunity, venture downtown Carver and partake in the festivities. Also, St. Mark's Church in New Germany, they're having their annual pork chop feed this coming Sunday from 10:30 to 2. And then finally, a shout out to the Young America Cardinals, who were in the Class C State Amateur Baseball Tournament. They made it into the semifinals and losing out to Jordan. So congratulations, Cardinals.
Commissioner Lynch.
With that, I would like to congratulate the Waconia Lakers for actually winning the championship because
Are you one-upping it?
they actually won the state championship by beating was it Jordan 5-2. They had a couple draftees from Watertown. There's a lot of great baseball in Carver County. I mean, the Cardinals were the number 1 seed. Waconia was the number 2 seed, and then they went all the way to the semifinals and the finals. So that's really awesome. I would like to say that September 14th from 8 to noon at the Hollywood Truck Station, there's a special waste drop-off. If you have any household hazardous waste or anything like that in the western part of northwest part of the county, you can drop it off there. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Uderman.
Big day today for a lot of people, parents, educators, kids. 15-minute late start on the meeting today because I got my kids on the bus today. So 5 and 9-year-old, but shout out to all the people in the preparations for being for today. A lot of nervousness and a lot of excitement for today, and I think you'll be off to a great start. Also saw a lot of building construction projects culminate, new pavement in a lot of the schools, a lot of updates. And I know a number of people on this board have served in the capacity of school board. So congratulations to those folks as we kick that off. I had a chance to go out to the Commons Bash, Paradise Commons Bash in Waconia. It was pretty cool outside of a couple hours of rain leading up to it. Slow walk up, but there was a lot of people there and enjoying it. And there was discussion of maybe this being an annual preschool thing. They had a rock climbing wall. Our staff was there. I think they were prudent in who they hired to bring in as a third party to handle a lot of the entertainment. The Lions Club was present. Band was there. It was great. A way to showcase Paradise Commons. I know Tom normally talks about the Apple House, but I'll talk about it. I did go out to the Apple House, did have my first kiss, and we enjoyed that. I think people probably already know this, but they're planning on relocating the Apple House to south of Highway 5. Also had a chance to talk to Andrew, the new executive director at the Arboretum, and he's actually fielding a team that's going to be instrumental in talking about some of the changes that are coming and have public input. So I think that's really important. I know we've got people in the room talking about 82nd Street and Highway 5. These are historical changes in our county, and we're navigating them. I think there's two pieces of that equation. One is the project base, let's get the project done, and then I think the other side is the vision for the future, and I think that our teams are working well together to accomplish both. Valley Free had their 4th year of their festival. They bring in animals and entertainment and all kinds of fun and stuff. Had a chance to attend that. That was fantastic. From our last meeting, we talked about last meeting, we talked about the lending library. Which is housed at the rack, where you can actually buy a membership and purchase things that you don't want to store at your home. There's electric lawnmowers, there's hedge trimmers, there's all kinds of things. And so I had a chance to take a tour of that, and they're excited about getting that off the ground. They met with our communications team to find out how they can get the word out. I think he said that it's the third or fourth in the nation that's a lending library. And I know there's different stipulations, but just another area where Carver County is leading and taking the charge. I'm looking at Heather. I know your team was instrumental in making some of that happen as well. Carver Crossings 2.0 is what I call it. I know that we have some CDA people here. It was fun to be there. Greg, seeing you speak there. Culmination of a lot of work, a lot of swings at the ball and get that project off the ground. And we got the ribbon cutting in just in time before the rain opened up, like literally just in time. So congratulations to the CDA crew. Julie Frick has had a huge hand in that, Allison and others. Let's see here, Baylor Park, I took a drive out west and wanted to see all the developments of 212, and then I stopped in on Baylor and see the boardwalk. It's great. It's great work. I didn't realize how long it was. And the campgrounds were jam-packed as well. And then finally, I'm really encouraged by a lot of things that are on the agenda today. We're accelerating projects that maybe 5 years ago we didn't think were possible. And it's not without its share of work. I'm looking at Lyndon, I'm looking at Eric and others, particularly on the road construction side. 212 and 5 are simultaneously, arguably, two of the biggest projects in our county's history, and they're happening in the midst of right now. And I think sometimes I have to pause and recognize the people, the dozens of people that have had a hand in making that happen. So thank you, and we're seeing that culmination right here in our agenda. So thank you.
Just want to echo those two major projects that you mentioned, 212 and Highway 5. They're not county roads, but yet we're the instrumental part. Without the county, either one of those two roads would have been moving forward. Commissioner Workman.
Well, Rolling Acres Road is a county road, and that's in the middle of beautiful Commissioner District 2. And so working every day with those good people to make sure that the impact isn't too wild. And Lyndon and Eric Johnson over there, consultant, doing a great job. We'll see what happens. I found that road construction is always a little obtrusive, but at the end of the day, you get a good project, a good product, and people usually figure out, well, maybe it wasn't too bad, but let's keep working on that. I was going to talk a little bit about Chaska Hawks winning, which they didn't, or the Chanhassen Storm winning, which they didn't, or the Minnesota Gopher football team, which didn't. So I'm coming out of retirement as a field goal kicker, and it'll be a real phenomenon. But anyway, not the best, but a great summer was had by the Workman clan and others, and a great weekend. And not a big state fair guy, but what a great summer. Don't forget, while I live with a retired teacher, don't forget your school bus drivers that Commissioner Uterman failed to mention. They don't have your children too long, but it's a very, very important portion of their day, going to school and getting home safely. So don't forget those guys, good people. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I remember sitting in the back of the bus and some wisecrack said, grind me a pound, because you're the bus driver back in those days. The buses were standard transmissions, and he was having a hard time finding some of the gears. But those were the good old days. You mentioned road construction. You can't travel on Audubon South or Pioneer East without noticing a few cones. There's lots of cones. So that's, in case you didn't know, they are doing a resurfacing job, and they're doing a lot of taking out some of the curbs and the storm sewer, fixing what has to be fixed, put it that way. And I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate our county attorney on an anniversary. So congratulations, Mr. County Attorney. Many, many more anniversaries. And there's a joke behind that, but we won't go into that now. So talk to Mr. Metz. He's got a good one there. Mention the storms. We don't appreciate electricity, simple things in life, like electricity, until the power is out. Well, we had that bad storm on Monday evening. About 7:30, the power went out at the farm, and we did not get it back until Wednesday at 10:30. So that's about 50 some hours without power. And thank goodness you have a portable generator, because else the freezers would be not froze anymore. And finally, I'd like to mention this Sunday, a lot of churches and organizations are celebrating, it used to be called Rally Day. Now they come up with some new phrases, but basically it's a get reacquainted with your church. I mean, if you took the summer off, hopefully you didn't, but if you did, now's the time to re-energize yourself and get back into the habit. So with that, that ends our community announcements for the day, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 19 items on the consent agenda. I'll go over a few of them. We have a professional service agreement for Highway 11 and 14. We have a Dakota Rail trail repair. We have an agreement with the City of Chaska for Circle the Brick segment. We have a service agreement for the Brandondale Trail project. We have an approval from donated prizes for employee relations. We have household waste agreement. We reappoint our county assessor. Approval offers on Highway 5 project. We have a settlement agreement, right away, I should say, for Highway 18 project. Request to deposit fill material, it's an IUP. And a request for a parking lot on the trailhead facility, that's a CUP. Early termination of ag preserve. Professional service agreement for Highway 41 project. We actually have 1, 2, 3 of those professional service agreements. We have easement dedication for Highway 30. Another professional service agreement with a law firm. And finally, I shouldn't say finally, but we also have our Health and Human Services and Commissioner warrants. And then finally, a settlement agreement for the right-of-way on Highway 18 project. Anything that should be pulled to talk about more? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ruderman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Workman. Any discussion on the consent? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Commissioner Ruderman.
Congratulations, Ryan. Your team has done a nice job. You, Vanessa, and your team. I know that you came in, what is it, 3 years ago now? Is it 3 years? 2 years ago, yeah. So good job to your team. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs and the increases and all that other stuff. Also, I wanted to point out 510 is fill material. I've had conversations with District 112 to see if there's opportunity for them to partner with us on an excess fill so that we can save the overall taxpayer dollars. So it's good to see that's happening as an example. And then lastly, I got a request from a constituent that we pull something ahead. That's what this was, the amendment. To get some stuff done on 82nd Street and 18. And although government often gets knocked with not moving fast, we moved fast on this one because it was a win-win for everybody. It was a win-win for the family that wanted to move on and get to what they needed, and there was a deadline and a timeline needed. It was a win on our side because I think it was a little bit less than what we initially maybe thought it was going to be in price-wise, but it did come at a cost, right? So Lynn and his team had to scramble to get that done, so I wanted to recognize that and thank everybody for the effort on it. So thank you.
With that, we'll move on to 6.1 on our agenda, Memorandum of Understanding with the University of Minnesota for the Highway 5 project and Highway 18 project Arboretum area. Mr. Lyndon Rogent, our county engineer.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, as several of you mentioned, we are doing some significant projects in our county with 212 under construction after many, many years. Highway 5 in project development and the County Road 18 project, as well as Rolling Acres Road. So with that, we have been working on all those roadways around the Arboretum for probably 5 years now through the study. And I have to say a significant partner on that project, of course, is the University of Minnesota.
Before you go any further, you want to mention why was Highway 5 closed down for a number of days about a week and a half ago?
Yeah, sure. As you know, it's very narrow, right? So
Yep.
we have to do significant soil borings through the wetland by Lake Minnewaska. The only efficient way to really access those soil boring locations was to close the road down. If the public noticed, we also hired a barge from Arkansas, Alabama, somewhere like that. Louisiana. We brought it up to do soil borings in the lake itself. So they accomplished a lot. I don't know how many soil borings there were, but there was a ton done in that short space of time. But Unfortunately, the only way to accomplish that was to close down the road.
But you got it done in a shorter period of time than was expected?
Yep, yeah, we
So-
were gonna go through Sunday, and I think we finished on Friday. So I know there was a big golf tournament that weekend, so we
Maybe-
accommodated that.
Little US amateur?
Yeah, we wanted to do it over the winter, the soil borings, but because we had such a mild winter, we weren't able to do it. The soil rigs could not go out in the swamp during last winter, so.
Well, now for anybody that didn't know why it was closed, now they know. Thank you.
Yep, very good. So, I'm gonna hand this over to Eric Johnson. He's our project manager for all these projects. You can see on the screen, Highway 5 is in green and blue, and the 82nd Street project is in orange. We'll give a quick update of where we're at on the schedule, very quick. But then, as I mentioned, with the University of Minnesota being right in the middle of the project, they are a significant partner for us. And we have to come to agreements with them because we need property from them. So we'll run briefly through a term of our memorandum of understanding with them, which will lead to formal agreements down the road. So with that, I'll introduce Eric Johnson from Bolton and Mink.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good morning. So to pick up where Lyndon left this, again, so this memorandum of understanding that we're bringing forth today is between the Regents of the University of Minnesota and Carver County for the Highway 5 and the CASA 18 or 82nd Street projects. And yeah, as Lyndon said, we've got them surrounded with all the roads that run through there, and we're really impacting all the edges. But first, a quick update on project schedule. So for 82nd Street, we're wrapping up the plans and the permits now. We're gonna be advertising later this month, awarding a contract in October, and beginning construction in November. And the work that's gonna begin in November is due to the Rusty Patch Bumblebee. With that all said, we need land agreements with the University of Minnesota prior to commencing the work. For Highway 5, the environmental assessment is underway. The team is working on 95% design plans. We're doing multiple special studies right now, so doing the noise analysis with results this fall. The threatened and endangered species, including the bee, the formal consultation will begin in the next month, although we're having preliminary discussions right now. Also wetland permitting and impacts analysis. So we remain on track to have our plans complete, our environmental clearance, and property acquired by spring 2025. And that allows for the major construction in 2026, 2027. Major risks, things that are out of our control, of course, is the environmental process. We're doing our best to be proactive and having a lot of proactive discussions. And a creative idea we're going to talk about here in a few moments. But I'd say that's one of the most major risks with the project, managing that. So the purpose of the MOU, again, as Lyndon said, this is really the culmination of the last 5 years of working together. It is a non-binding agreement, but it really sets the stage for all the binding agreements that are to follow. So the MOU summarizes the common understanding of the project, the impacts, the solutions, the mitigation, and begins to outline the responsibilities of the parties. So really having this MOU in place allows us to have individual agreements without having full definition to the full mitigation package. Like getting the property we need to construct 82nd Street in short order.
Yeah, before you explain what the key to the EU, the EG, the Ts, and the WU.
Ooh, I don't have those at hand. This is a graphic created by the university.
Lyndon,
I knew you were gonna ask that, Mr. Chair, so I looked it up.
I hate to let you down. I hate to let you down.
So this is a graphic that's part of the MOU, so the university defined critical areas for their understanding. So the WU is a proposed underpass that we're gonna construct. Well, Eric will explain why and how. East is the east underpass, so there's 2 new proposed underpasses there. The EG is that new entrance. I'm not sure why it's called East EG. It has a reason. And T are basically properties that are going to get transferred either from us or to the university.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, it's probably something gate.
Ah. So, again, we need property from all the Arboretum, almost all the Arboretum parcels. So the yellow diamonds are all the parcels that we have property impacts to. In total, we have an impact area of over 15 acres to the Arboretum, to all of these properties. So some of that is temporary easement, some of it's permanent easement. And again, as I mentioned, the MOU allows us to remain on track. These dates that are on the screen here are part of the MOU, so we'll get the property needed to construct 82nd Street by October 1st and Highway 5 by March 1st. So from the University of Minnesota and the Arboretum's perspective, there's kind of three different ways they're looking at the impacts of the project. And so first, we'll cover the operational and safety impacts. So with the changes, with all the construction, we're gonna be adding a median to Highway 41 and a median to Highway 5. All of the colored dots on screen, those are access points. And so a lot of field access points, they move equipment, quite often in different seasons between the fields, and they travel down the highway. So they're concerned with the new geometry that we're proposing and running the equipment on the new road and, more traffic, growing traffic. Those were concerns.
And the blue dot, Mr. Chair, is the current entrance for the Arboretum. That will be a right in, right out too, so that's a major impact.
Yep. So with the MOU as we have it drafted today, we would close all the red and yellow access points, so closing 9 access points with the project, and we're gonna provide alternatives to those access points. So really, they would have a right in, right out on Highway 41 on the north side, full access south, which exists today, and then Rolling Acres Road and Bavaria both have field entrances as well. We're
The
gonna
accesses that you're closing, are those just temporary or are those gonna be permanent closures?
permanent. Let's see. So here's the proposed mitigation then for all those closures and the changes that come with the project. As Lyndon was pointing out here, the Minnewaska Parkway will be the new primary access point for the Arboretum, adding a 4th leg to the signal. With that, the Arboretum would be paying for the south side of that intersection. So the turn lanes that feed that south leg and the south leg approach and a quarter of the signal costs. So that is part of the agreement. And then today where their existing primary access point is, that will be converted to a right out only with an acceleration lane. Most, over 80% of the people leaving the Arboretum would go that way. That's the way they're destined.
And the Arboretum, Mr. Chair, will build that white road. That's a new entrance road. That's about a $10 million investment. They have all the funds in place to do that.
And the light that's there at the new entrance, that will remain. I mean, some people have talked that would go away in the future, but that will not. Okay.
Correct. So the west underpass, so we have the west and east underpass, and that facilitates the movement between the fields and with the equipment and keeps that ag equipment off the highways or crossing the highways. This west underpass would connect the fields, but it also provides public access to the Lake Tamarack area, which is open to the public without admission fees. So it's managed by the Arboretum, but it's managed differently. So the Arboretum has also committed to building a roadway network to tie their properties together and to relocate this Lake Tamarack access, which today is, it's a access point right off of 5, right where I moved the dot to.
So when you say underpass, this isn't just a walking pedestrian. this is wide enough that you can put vehicles, a regular bridge.
Yes, yep, it is a 20-foot wide by 14-foot high structure to carry single lane traffic through that with room for pedestrians and bicyclists. I think the Arboretum has some ideas that they could further enhance that part of their visitor experience with this. The county was proposing more of a basic underpass, and the Arboretum is funding $600,000 of this western underpass to build it a little wider to accommodate the pedestrians. So that's part of
What's
the
in
deal.
it for the general public besides safety that the Arboretum doesn't have to cross 5? Because that's adding a lot of expense to that Highway 5 project.
Right, I'm gonna come to some other benefits of providing that access here in a couple
Sorry.
slides. It might be easier to
Okay, yeah.
show. But yes, from the operational and safety perspective of keeping fields and their employees safe, this was very important to the Arboretum. And I think from a highway perspective of reducing or minimizing those conflicts and speed differentials of the equipment and cars is a positive. The eastern underpass, lost my dot. Am I supposed to be pointing up there? Oh, I thought it was here, sorry. The eastern underpass, that is just for agricultural equipment. So I know we have the newly constructed Highway 5 Regional Trail that goes through this area. We do need to shift that slightly north, just through this underpass area to get it so it doesn't interfere with Arboretum's operations and their fencing. But this allows those fields to be connected and for us to eliminate the access points that are really, a lot of these access points are in the intersection influence area where we're gonna have stacked up cars in the peak hours too.
Eric, can you will you be able to?
Commissioner Uterman.
Sorry, will you be able to take a bike up there? Because I know that the connection, the north-south connection, if you're in front of the Lifetime and you go east, you got to keep going and zig around, and it doesn't give you can this be part of the solution for bikers to get up to Minnewaska?
We will be building a new, I know it doesn't totally answer your question. Yeah, an underpass of Highway 5, just east of 41. This regional trail is not going to be connected through other new Arboretum lands.
Okay.
So you have to ride along Highway 5, and the underpass at Minnewaska Parkway remains.
So you'll be able to go from the Lifetime up under Highway 5 up to Minnewaska.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know how many underpasses we're putting in.
So everybody says the road's expensive, but it's not just the road.
Absolutely not.
Mhm. And again, with this eastern underpass, the Arboretum, as part of the MOU, is committed to building all these connecting roads, their access relocation in coordination with the project, so we can do all these closures coordinated, but with the project. No, it's not. Sorry, wrong button again. Environmental impacts to the Arboretum. So, of course, with the roadway expansion, increased traffic, and the physical impacts, we agree there will be noise impacts. Noise will increase with increased traffic volumes. That's a concern for the Arboretum and their setting, as well as land and soils. We already talked about property impacts, but there's concerns too with all of our grading around the site and how that impacts agricultural land that they use for farming and how it's compacted, and maintaining the topsoils that they have, and view shed. With a lot of our work, there's gonna be tree trimming around the edges along these roads, so changing the feel of the setting. So I mentioned the physical impacts, the safety and operational, and environmental. So those are really the three buckets of impacts that Lyndon and I have been working with on finding mitigation for those impacts, which some of which are hard to quantify. So with that, we've got, after a lot of coordination, I think we're arriving at a very creative concept that hopefully is beneficial from many perspectives. So with that, as we've discussed, we are, with the Highway 5 project alone, we're gonna be preliminary estimates are we're gonna be impacting 80 acres of disturbance with the project of, grading to build the project. Habitat assessments are being completed right now and reviewed with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but I mean, there's different levels of habitat. But we're gonna have an impact to the rusty patch bumblebee that will need to be mitigated. With that, we have this idea, the graphic on the right is north of Highway 5, or Highway 5's here on the bottom. And then Rolling Acres Road is here. So north and east of Rolling Acres Road and Highway 5, City of Victoria has these lands, about 26 acres. Some of those 26 acres are buildable if they were properly served with infrastructure, road, sewer, water. The idea here is, with the project, if we can enhance this habitat for the rusty patch bumblebee and have U.S. Fish and Wildlife agree that this is would be viewed as mitigation and good for the bee, this would be placed in, we would do the mitigation needed with the project and then transfer ownership of these parcels to the University of Minnesota for long-term conservancy. And they would manage that much like the 80 acres south. These parcels here are the Lake Tamarack area that are open to the public from dusk till, or dawn till dusk till dawn. So these lands would be mixed in with that and accessible to the public. And so from different perspectives, this helps with City of Victoria's share on the project, as we would purchase these lands from Victoria for appraised value. Carver County would get the mitigation for the project. The university, from the university's perspective, it's enhancing and adding to their lands. It aligns with their values. And so they would like to actively manage these, and to the community, it creates some more and enhanced public spaces. The picture on the bottom, that is just one of the images from the Lake Tamarack area today. So there are trails there, and you can drive back there and drop a canoe in and have access to the water too. So next steps here are working on appraisals for all these different areas, all the different impact areas. Again, advancing the property agreements between the university and the county for 82nd Street by October, and Highway 5 by March. This MOU again leads us to the settlement agreement, which then will further define all the details that are mentioned in the MOU and the transition of funds and things like that. So yeah, that is the last slide there, leading to the recommended action. Any questions?
There's a lot of questions more on the logistics than on the actual memorandum. Do we know where the bees are? Do we have a specific location, or are they scattered throughout the whole arboretum?
Well, I think they're kind of scattered all over, and so biologists have been doing a habitat assessment of all the impact areas for the whole project, and then they rate them as low quality, medium quality, high quality, and then it's where they live and where they forage. So it's a big report on that, and that's what's drafted right now, and will be making its way to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for review.
And these entomologists are satisfied that by purchasing this land from the City of Victoria, we will enhance the habitat and the bees will find their way to this new habitat?
And so some of this there's no guarantees. There's more work to do, and they need to review and form their opinions to either confirm or challenge some of the opinions to date. I think the idea is part of this could be in perpetuity. We will have these lands available for nature. And what do we need to do for seeding those areas? Are there some improvements we need to do to what's growing there today that would further be more attractive to the bee.
Are we doing this whole study and buying this land and this and that? Are we sure that it will be accepted by the, forget what?
With Fish and Wildlife?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a meeting with them last week, so we're confident that there's work to be done.
Mhm.
If it doesn't work out, then we have to go to Plan B, which might be another mitigation location. You know.
Okay,
Maybe Minnewaska Park's another one, you know, that Marty's getting a grant to take out some of the invasive species there, the buckthorn. That could be another location we could do habitat enhancement. But this looks like it's an area that could work too.
I hope it works, but if by chance it doesn't work, is this whole agreement null and void? Or are we gonna proceed with it even though that it doesn't satisfy the main reason we're doing it?
Yeah, I think the university, Mr. Chair, would still like to go ahead with the land swap. If that doesn't work out, we have to acquire the land from them and negotiate a price. So that's the Plan B.
Okay, we're showing what the university is gaining. What are we gaining by this swap?
Well, we gain, there's no dollars exchange for the land that we need from the Arboretum. So it's a zero, all the easements are part of the deal. And obviously, if it benefits the bee, that's a game changer for us. So one's a little, we're confident, but we're not quite there. That's why this is an MOU.
Right.
By the time we get to the end, hopefully we find out all those details. So we think, and the Victoria gets a credit, because remember, they cost share in Rolling Acres Road. They're paying for half the road right-of-way needed. That's our cost share policy. So this allows them to get a credit to help that city out with their cost share of the project. So if it all works, it's kind of a win-win.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Fahey.
You had mentioned on the first slide that it is a non-binding agreement, so as you continue to work through this whole process but the amount of meetings that you must have had and just to get to this stage is just incredible. So thank you for your work and just having Eric on board and continue to negotiate. It's gonna
Yes.
come down to some sort of negotiations and hopefully everyone is a winner.
Yep.
And ultimately for us to be able to drive the bus on the completion of Highway 5 to make this a 4-lane ultimately makes it safer. And then as you bring it towards Victoria and then beyond, it's just gonna have more opportunities in the future for beyond.
Other questions? Commissioner,
Couple questions. One is, I know the 41 project, the underpass down by Domino's and Curling Center, founded or unfounded, there's a certain amount of people that are concerned about safety in an underpass. And I think I've heard things like, can you put up a mural? Because the mural and better lighting, and is there a contact with law enforcement to make sure there's observation or whatever? But it's inevitable whenever you put in an underpass, people think there's going to be people that come out, camp, they're homeless people, they're drug use. I mean, that's what people conjure in their heads. Is there any mitigation that we can do proactively within budget to have murals, lighting, whatever it is, on the multiple underpasses that we're talking about?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Uderman, lighting for sure, we'll put those in. As far as the mural goes, we'll probably, if the Arboretum wants them or not, at least to date, they've indicated they want some pretty basic, right, underpasses, but that's for their farm equipment. The ones that are with the cities, for PEDs, yeah, we can look at that if there's a way to enhance that.
And then if I rewind, I don't know, 3 years, give me the right, it doesn't have to be today, but the right math. I thought there was going to be something like 27 closures over 3 years. And because of the consolidation and the federal funding and state funding and effort and work and tightening it up, it sounds like it's going to be maybe 4 public closures over 18 months. Can you get me kind of in the
which road
ballpark
are you
of
talking about?
the from 41 to Dairy Queen? And it seems like the project went from like this interruption to like this.
Talking about construction.
Yeah, when the graphic here is most of the AATP. So at the conclusion of that study in 2021, we had about 20 projects. And in the area Well, since that ended, we had the 20 projects, each one had independent utility, and we identified potential funding sources for each piece. So that would be I suppose, a worst-case scenario. If we could only assemble money for a piece at a time, it would have, it would have had major impacts over the subsequent 20 years if we're building it in pieces. And as we've started to assemble this a couple years ago, we started with a focus area at Minnewaska Parkway and Highway 5. And then it grew, or there were different funding sources, or we had some success, so it continued to grow. And for a while now, we've been pursuing the project as a whole and claiming the benefits as a whole, and that's a major benefit. Inflation and impacts to the public through construction. So, yeah, this could have been many projects on Highway 5.
If there's some way to do like a from to, because I also know the business community, when that shovel goes in the ground, the interruptions, although it may not be helpful for the closures that are necessary, it might be helpful to know that what it was originally proposed with all those different pieces, it would have been this. And so it takes a little sting out of it. People using 82nd Street, Highway 18, landowners, et cetera. So that from to might be helpful in the future. The last thing I had was, I think I saw initial renderings when you guys were doing reverse engineering to pull cost out. And I don't know what the threshold is, the size of the project or whatever. But it was suggested that instead of a 1,600-foot bridge, could we push it just west of that property that has the peninsula north of 5? And I think that was accepted, right? So that we have less suspended bridge area. So can you give me an update on, it was 1,600 feet bridge, now it's whatever, and then I think there's cost savings by not having to acquire property, not having to provide access.
Yeah, here's that image during the study. This was, everything in view was a structure. It was about 1,600 feet. We have a column-supported embankment now, so it is still a very expensive stretch of road, but it's supported by columns and then fill wrapped in fabric on top of that. And we're holding the existing road base, and we're not going to impact that. We're going to add to it. So that's already settled. So that was a savings of around $10 million estimated. We have a small bridge to connect the hydrology over here. I think it's less than 100 feet wide now. We're still working with the appropriate design through there, but connecting hydrology, and then we'll have other places, for the critters to go under with different passages through this stretch too.
Big win, thank you. $10 million is a big number to take out of the project and might cover inflation by the time we get it done. Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other thoughts, questions?
Mr. Chairman, about that east underpass, I'm assuming the Arboretum will gate that? There'll be a door
yes.
on that?
Yes. The other one, they have to be a little more creative on, because as Eric mentioned, the west one, this will be the access to Lake Tamarack lands. So you'll come in the main entrance, there'll probably be a right turn, that'll get the general public underneath there so they can access those roadways.
Well, there's I think an automatic gate there now, isn't there?
I think it's open during the day, but then they close it at night. Yep.
Just a fun fact, where does the word tamarack come from?
I'm assuming they had tamarack trees there at one point.
That's what I'm assuming too. Other thoughts, questions? We are asking, the recommended is to approve a memorandum of agreement between the Regents of the University of Minnesota and Carver County for the Highway 5 project and the Highway 18 project Arboretum area.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Uterman. Any discussion on that MOU? Commissioner Lynch.
Just like thank Lynn and his team and Eric for going through. We have minimal risk at the very last line. It says the MOU is a non-binding agreement. Financial responsibilities and payment terms will be defined in a separate agreement. So keep our planning going forward.
Good comments. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Item 7.1, preliminary Carver County 2025 levy and budget. Administrator Hemsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. The action item before you today is to approve the preliminary levy and related budget. And of course, this is the time of year that you set that ceiling. And as we move through the remainder of the budget to the end of the year, you can bring that preliminary levy down, but you cannot increase it, as you know. But just to set the stage for that. Okay, so what I'll be doing is giving the executive summary, and of course, you've seen this information during last week's work session, and thank you, by the way, for the work that you've put in throughout this year. Of course, one of the key events, meetings was the strategic planning retreat. That's way back in May. But really, budgets are a continual process. We're always working on budget, literally. This is a critical stage in the budget, but we're always working on it. I'd like to thank the team that does that. It does take a team. In particular, the division directors. I see a few of them in the room today, so if we have some questions, they're on standby. And then, of course, Mary Kay really and the remainder of the finance team put in a heck of a lot of work throughout the year. So I'll provide that high-level summary. We also will use this as an opportunity to give you an update on what we call the YES account, the year-end savings account. That's a term that we came up with many years ago, sort of that remaining balance that is left over at the end of the year. And then Dave will do both these items. Dave will update you on the long-term financial plan, that 5-year plan, another related important document in our fiscal planning. And then close out with the budget schedule. Most importantly, the December meeting, he'll note, is the final approval of the levy and budget. So here's the highest level picture that I could come up with, along with some other help. And of course, we talked about the 8.9% preliminary levy, which is a bit higher than this year. This year we're in the 6s. The proposal is 8.9. However, item 2, you can see the impact, the tax impact on the average value home is similar. And that's a complicated formula that Dave can dive into a little bit, but a lot of that relates to fiscal disparities and the shifting tax base on various properties. And in this case, we're looking at, of course, that average value home, which you'll note later on a graph is in the amount of $471,900, that average value home. But that, again, is similar to our 2024 budget, that 4.6. That compares to a 4.5% this year. And then I mentioned that strategic planning meeting. We knew there was a significant budget gap. We talked about that during the meeting, and that's the main thing we have been working on, is closing that gap as we move through this process and work through the budget hearings, et cetera. And I didn't note, but I should, that in your packet, there's a great deal of detail, of course, that provides more information on all these numbers, including that 2.5. There's a list of the items that divisions and others had worked on. There a lot of revenue adjustments and other changes that were made that were instrumental in closing the gap and getting us down to that 8.9% number. And item 4, I would note that this is the big one. This really is the heart of the budget, and it always is, of course. Salaries are the biggest part of our budget, but it really, I don't think has ever been more clear than it has been over the past few years that market issue are the biggest challenges we face. And we're not alone. Of course, the market is broader than us. We're all competing for talent, and not only competing for external talent, but competing to keep our own employees. And that really, again, if there's one key point I would make, that is the biggest impact on this proposed budget as we look into 2025. We really are recommending a strong, solid strategy to maintain competitive wages, to attract and retain good employees, which ultimately is, to me, the key to running efficient and highly effective services. But again, never more clear to me that really that was the biggest challenge. The item, or the number, I'm sorry, you'll see in your budget that Dave will outline is $6 million, and he can dive into that in a little more detail. And there was certainly some good news in there with health insurance, but we're also, remember, raising our game on the competition, trying to keep up with what has been lagging, especially in family health insurance. So that's part of the budgetary recommendation also. Unfortunately, number 5, if there was one thing that I'd really like to address better than we have in this current budget, is that there are no new levy-funded FTEs. There are just over 5, and FTEs are full-time equivalents, as we have some part-timers, et cetera. So one FTE is one full-time position. So there are some budget FTEs, I'm sorry, in the budget recommendation, I think 5 or so, a little over 5, that have revenue generated. But given the challenges in bringing the budget together, I have not, at least at this point, recommended any new levy-funded FTEs. And in your packet, and we sent this last week also, you can see the justification that division directors have put through the process. And again, I'd like to address that gap. I just haven't been able to do that with this particular recommendation. And it does, I think, relate to some of the challenges that are a little more difficult to explain, you know, on the service level issue, which I would look at the budget that's been that is in front of you today as maintaining our existing service levels. And don't let that mislead you. Maintaining takes investments to keep up to the service levels. But there's really no significant new programs, new types of services that are in the package on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm not recommending significant reduction in service levels. So trying to keep things intact, which I would argue is a relatively high level of service in comparison to our colleagues here at Carver County. And I'll come back to item 6, but related to that, and as we tell the budget story here, of course, inflation, thank goodness, is tailing off. It's coming down under 3% now. I heard a number in the 2s just, I think this morning I was reading, in the upper 2s. But prior to that, previous years, double digit. And of course, we were challenged with those numbers. And I think what generally we're seeing, however, is that the costs aren't generally going down. So those inflationary numbers brought this cost up. They're hopefully plateauing and getting back to what we'd consider normal, but they're not really dropping. And that does impact the budget. And you can see that as you go through the detail of your budget, what we call attachment A, some of those items that are challenging the divisions, like energy, for example. Energy has not dropped off. We're hoping it does, but it just hasn't. And, you know, wages I'd throw into that same category, where we were hoping for some plateau, but we're not just seeing that. Hopefully in the near future here, we'll see that leveling off. But really, that's a big part of the budget picture. And then finally, back to item number 6 here. We just talked about this in a recent work session, the escalating government center costs for the main master space plan item, which is a proposed new government center facility, a new building here on the campus. That number had gone up. We're projecting or recommending an $82 million budget for that facility. We did address that in this package. We have a total of a $2.2 million levy to pay for the principal and interest on the bonds by 2029. So that was a $450,000 mark we had to hit in this budget to pull that together. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will pass the baton here to Dave Frischman, our finance director, unless you have questions for me, and I'll be on standby for
Any
you.
questions for Mr. Hemsey at this point? If not, we'll get back to him. Mr. Frischman.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning, Board Chair and members. Dave Frischman, Property Finance Director. And I'll just start off by identifying the strategies we've been working on. As Dave mentioned, we've had on the $2.5 million in revenue and expenditure reductions, revenue enhancements. We've completed that process. We think we're pretty good at, came up with a pretty good number, solid, sustainable changes, both on the revenue side and the expenditure side. The state legislature, that's always a challenge. Some years they treat us well, other years not so good. Overall, we've gotten through that. We didn't have any major surprises, which was good news. And then we feel like we've completed that process. Evaluating vacant positions, soft hiring freeze, that's ongoing. We continue to monitor that and look for opportunities to change how we're delivering services with various positions. And then, as Dave said, County Administrator said, maintaining existing service levels, we're evaluating that, and we're continuing. That's a continual process. In terms of our 2025 tax base update, so the overall tax base is 22.3 billion. You mentioned Ryan Johnson, that's his staff that goes through that process for us every year. So just over 4% increase. The value of new construction is over 450 million. That would allow the county board to increase the tax levy for 2025 by just over 3 million with no impact on average valued home. So as county administrator said, the 8.9% with a 4.5% or 4.6% tax impact, a chunk of that is due to the new construction as well as the fiscal disparities, where we're sharing the growth in commercial properties throughout the metro area. In terms of average value increases, residential, you can see there just over 1, commercial a little bit more, ag close to 10%. And what that does is behind the scenes, if nothing else changes, there's a tax-based shift from the residential to the commercial agriculture, just because of their values are changing. So the pie is shifting the portions between those 2 areas, or those 3 areas, excuse me. The administrator's recommended preliminary levy increase, as county administrator mentioned. You can see the average valued home went from 466 up to 472, and the 6.2 million levy increase would have an 8.9% increase over the prior year, and the $65 tax impact, that's annual for that average valued home, which represents a 4.6%. And I have the capture new construction, the 3.1, I mentioned that before. You can see down at the bottom, the previous 2 years property tax levies and increases, and you can see the tax impact was 4.5% from last year. Average valued home, you can see the chart, gold has the CPI increase, the basket of goods, and then the orange is the tax burden on that average valued home. You can see we're tracking with that inflation, with that CPI, fairly closely over the last, back to 2016. And you can see the county's bond rating is AAA. That represents our financial abilities, our financial and our reserve balances and tax base, and the Standard & Poor's evaluates all those things. Are basically the county's ability to pay, repay its debt, make its debt service, and we have the highest rating for that. In terms of our budget projection, the numbers you can see on the top, that's the levy increase. You can see the last 3 years how that's increased. And then the projected salary and benefits, Dave mentioned that $6 million number. That, as Dave said, that's the driving factor as the difference between 2024 to 2025. We did have some county-wide levy changes that helped close the budget, and then overall some division levy trends adjustments of $600,000. And I have slides to provide more detail on that. But we have balanced the budget, as Dave mentioned, but you can see no new levy-funded FTEs in that line. In terms of the budget attachment A, and these are included in your packet, more details. Dave mentioned the levy increase for debt service. That's a $2.2 million increase, and we'll add that on to the debt service that's expiring. But we needed the additional money for the additional costs of the project. The other increases you can see they come from our long-term financial plan, where we're shifting more levy dollars to equipment and road preservation, shifting more money to our one-time projects, and then the county-wide negative trends, as well as a vacancy savings adjustment that nets to that $800,000 I mentioned before. Our vacancy savings, we have projected $8.9 million for vacancy savings for 2025. About 5.5% of that goes towards our operating budget, and then the 3% remainder goes to our cash flow. You can see the brown at the far right there. We started budgeting for or planning on using our vacancy savings to add to our cash flow reserves, because as the county's budget increases every year, we need additional cash flow at the beginning of the year to pay for those expenses because throughout the year, because we only bring in our 2 big revenue sources, property taxes, we only collect those twice a year. You can see going back, the green is the would be the amount that went to cash flow, and then the orange was the actual amount of the vacancy savings that we used in our operating budget. You can see what we've set aside in the gold has been pretty close overall. You know, it's a hard number to estimate and project, but it is, we just follow the trends, and you can see overall it's been going up, and then you can see where we budgeted and where we set aside those dollars. Vacancy savings is just a chart to show where that it's occurring. You can see Health and Human Services, a significant increase last 3 years. Public Service as well, Sheriff had a little up and down, Public Works also. So you can see we're just tracking those trends of where the vacancy savings are coming from. The CPA, County Program Aid, this amount that comes from the state. You can see the orange goes into our operating budget, and then a small amount goes to our capital improvement plan, CIPs, and then the green is the one-time projects. Attachment A is our, also on attachment, we have a division levy trends adjustments, that's 600,000. This was actually represents a negative number, an increase for 2025. You can see the different areas where that's coming from, with the Public Works being the largest, and the Sheriff's Office being the second. Those are trends, increasing costs that we're seeing, and we're tracking those, and we put them all together. And then at the bottom, we have some good news that offset that, but overall $600,000 increase in our operating budget for the various divisions. Attachment B is our requested staffing changes. You can see we had over 18 full-time equivalents that were requested by the division directors for 2025. You can see the various costs and the revenue sources. You can see down at the bottom, in yellow is the 5.35 FTEs that is included in the administrator's recommendation at this point, and those are funded from the column. You can see other sources, other revenue sources, non-property tax levy. At this point, we have 0 of levy-funded FTEs. In the middle there, under the description, the ones that are highlighted, that are in bold, those are the ones that are included in their non-property tax revenue sources. So those ones that are included, so we'd be adding to those budgets, and the ones that are not bold would be the ones that are not included. Our now shifting, that was operating a summary, now shifting to our capital improvement plans. Attachment E, I mentioned that before. There is 2.29 in county tax levy for road preservation. So overall, it's 150 million in road projects, but only just over 2 million is actually county levy. The rest of it is federal, state, Met Council, various funding sources. That's actually a decrease. Public Works is able to shift some of their operating money, and we were able to lower that tax levy for road preservation. We're continuing the plan. We still have dollars. He's just able to pull in other sources. So that was a benefit to our operating budget. And you can see the other capital improvement plans. We have parks and trails, buildings, regional rail authority, various amounts, but the highlighted in green, that none of those are tax levy dollars, county tax levy dollars. Attachment D is our 5-year replacement schedule. So we look out anything we can think of in facilities, vehicles, or equipment that we want to replace in the next 5 years. We have a schedule for that. We update it every year. We increased the levy dollars towards that by 100,000. So now we have 1.8 million that goes into that replacement schedule. And then attachment E is, these are capital projects, but these are one-time projects. So we set aside one-time dollars for those. We have just under 4 million for one-time projects this year. And you can see 1.6 million came out of our long-term financial plan. So those are projects we're aware of. We've been tracking. We've been updating the costs, and that's where the majority of the dollars are going to. We have 800,000 in new requests, things that just came up during the past year, and you can identify those there. And then 1.5 million is for the master space plan study. That's for the next phase of that project, and we're recommending a transfer out of the year-end savings to pay for that of 1.5 million. And as Dave mentioned, here's our year-end savings update. We had just over 4 million at the beginning of the year. various adjustments during the year, and then the 1.5 I just mentioned. That put us about 2.5 million in our year-end savings. That's our estimate at the end of the year. Now, looking ahead to the long term, the next 5, 10, 20 years, road and bridges, highlighted that there is new state dollars that's coming, and Lyndon, the Public Works Director, is working on updating their plans, their projects, and then how they recommend spending that money. Buildings and miscellaneous, that's obviously the master space plan. That's been a big project. As we mentioned, that the increased cost, we now have included the debt service, the expected debt service for that. And then parks and trails, we're working on lowering the amount of assets that are in very poor conditions in the parks. So they've spent a lot of time with updating their costs, updating their priorities. Hopefully, we can reduce that down to zero, so we'll have no parks assets that are in very poor condition for the next 5 years. Trails also has new state money. They're in the process of prioritizing their projects and coming up with recommendations for spending that. And the debt service I mentioned, so the total would be 5.3 million for a bond sale in 2028, and the first levy payment we're projecting to be in 2029. We have 3.1 available. In order to get to that 5.3, we need 450,000 in this budget, which we've included, and then in the next 4 budgets after that through 2029. And then in terms of operations, looking out into the future, full-time equivalents, as Dave mentioned, that's where the pressure point is. How do we continue to deliver services as the county continues to grow and our delivery service requirements become more complex and more challenging? And there is the Chaska Library that's been scheduled. There'll be additional FTEs for that. Employee health insurance, we did have good news on our RFP, but we're in the process of trying to also at the same time have our health insurance for family insurance be more competitive with the market. So then the last slide is just on the budget schedule. You can see the workshop. We did that last week, and then now we're doing the administrator's recommended preliminary budget, and then we did that, and today we're doing the adopt the preliminary levy and budget, fee schedule. That's a public hearing in November, a workshop looking at the long-term plan for late November, and then truth and taxation public hearing, 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 26th, and then finish with the final adoption of the levy and budget in December 3rd. So with that, the action requested, you can see it's in your packet for the board to approve the administrator's recommended levy and budget. Any questions?
Questions for either Dave? Dave first. Commissioner Urban.
Year-end savings. Do we have an estimate of what we think the year-end savings account will look like at the end of '25? Because it looks like we got 3 or so in change at the end of this year, plus 9 coming. From your slide, there was 9 tied to year-end savings for 25
9.
million. Can you go back a couple slides?
Yeah. Oops.
Maybe it's not all realized. Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. Are you?
I think so.
I'm not sure what you're looking for.
I'll find it on the slide. But do you know what our expected balance is at the end of '25?
Yeah, I expected to be around 2.5 million.
Could I clarify that, Mr. Chair? I don't think we really know. End of '25, Dave?
Well, I would anticipate we'd balance our budget for 2025. That's what our goal is. So we would anticipate at this point that we would zero that out. So we wouldn't be adding or subtracting to our year-end savings during 2025.
That's a projected.
Yeah.
Sorry, the slide
Budget
is titled
planning.
2025, 8.9 million vacancy savings. It was after the budget attachment A slide. And after the 2025 budget projection slide. I don't think they're numbered.
What was the question?
That's where I got the 8.9 for vacancy savings,
Yep.
and vacancy dumps into yes, right?
Anything over, what this slide is showing is what we have planning for 2025 in the far right, the 5.5% we're needing to balance the budget. So if we didn't have that, we would be short 5.5 million. So we are anticipating vacancy savings of 5.8 million. We're using to balance the budget.
So we're budgeting to have enough vacancies to balance our budget.
That's correct.
And
And
that
we're
is-
also anticipating on top of that, additional vacancy savings that we're going to put into, for cash flow, for our reserve
And as
balances.
that number goes up, it creates, alleviates more pressure on our budget. Said differently, as our turnover rate goes up, we have more vacancy, thus more dollars to take back into our budget to offset overruns. Is that accurate?
Well, I would say we followed the trend, we watched the trend, and as each year, we put a budget number into our budget that we anticipate. You can see this year, we added 700,000 vacancy savings by just increasing amount as people get paid more money. So then the 5.5% of that additional amount was 700,000.
Let me say it differently. If our turnover rate is around 18%, if that turnover rate came down to a more reasonable 8%, our budget would have significant pressure because of that.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Other thoughts? Questions? Question, Mr. Frischman. The debt service, it was 3.1, and now we're going to 5.3 to basically save up some money to pay for the anticipated government center building project.
That's correct. We anticipate a $82 million bond sale in 2028, and the debt service on that would be 5.5 million. Given an assumption on interest rates, obviously it could be much higher, it could be much lower, but at this point, the 5.5 million that we would have to pay every year for the next 20 years, and in order that we want to have that in our budget when we issue that debt. And this would accomplish that with the first payment being in 2029.
There was a time when people paid or had the money saved up before they went and bought something. When we're talking numbers like 80 million, it's a little tougher when the need is now. And the fact that who's going to use it? Not the people that have paid for those, by saving it up all the time. Obviously, people in the future are going to be using it. And that's why you, like say, bond for money or borrow money to pay for it. They can use it now and everybody shares in that payment as we go along. Other thoughts? If not, action requested. Is a motion to approve the administrator's recommended 2025 preliminary levy at 76,383,855, which is a increase of 8.9% from last year, for a total budget of 287,662,845, and set the 2025 budget hearing for Tuesday, November 26th at 6 o'clock. Is there a motion? Since we can't raise it after we set it, we can only lower it. I'll move the motion that I just reiterated. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Motion by myself, second by Commissioner Fahey. Any discussion? Commissioner Lynch.
Mr. Chair, I thought that, I'll be the first to say I don't like the 8.9. I think that Mr. Hemsey and Mr. Frischman laid it out very clearly. We're here because of inflation and energy, wages and benefits, and that's what's driving our budget. Mr. Hemsey laid it out very clearly that wages and benefits is the largest driving factor. One point is, one percentage point is $800,000. So if we want to do that, we can approve this now and then move it back down. We have till November to see what we want to carve out. The non-mandated services, the biggest ones, if we want to go there, are parks, libraries, transportation, planning, and construction. We just had a large, we talked about how much time and energy we're working on Highway 5. Do we want to cut that out, or do we want to keep moving forward is the major question. And if nothing else, I'd like to see specifics about what we'd like to cut out in the future in November. But I'll be supporting the 8.9, and I'll be the first to say I don't like it.
And I'll be the second to agree with you, because, right, nobody likes to pay more, but I think the fact is, obviously, costs are going up, and if we want to send the wrong message to our employees, it's to say that, hey, we're gonna cut vacancies or eliminate vacancies. Because if my coworker no longer is here, that means I have to pick up the slack. And nobody likes to see that. And at this point, that's a message that I'm not willing to send. Other thoughts, questions, discussion?
Mr. Chair, we had a work session
Ruderman.
last week, and I'll share some of the same comments I shared then because we were on camera. I think
Hopefully you're not sharing it just because we're on camera.
I'll borrow from what Tom's shared with me and educated me on for years. I think that the emotional argument is we're going to have to cut the football team, and I don't think that's fair. I think that there's other options, and I just have seen a lack of suggestions from our board and giving direction to look into areas where we can get to a number that's manageable. I also think that the perspective of an organization, I can get to these numbers too. But the job I have is to look to my constituents and the constituents' perspective. And the constituent perspective that I gather, knocking on 9,000 doors in the last couple months and being at 150 plus events a year is it's too much. It's too much at the city level, it's too much at the county level, and unfortunately, if we continue to begrudgingly say, geez, I don't like it, but we're gonna go along with it, 95% chance whatever we set as our preliminary will become true. That's a fact. 95% of the time people set a preliminary levy, it becomes a fact. So whatever we decide today will be what our final levy will be. And if we put our constituents first, we have to think about the potential of choking a 2025 referendum. So while you're telling people that perhaps we're going to protect the employees and get you paid well, we can do that. And we don't have to choke a referendum for our kids and our schools and our teachers and our future. It'll be the second time in 2 years that our levy rate will go up if we adopt this after a period of 4, 5, 6 years in a row of our levy rate going down. We have failed to talk about the work from home savings that we made a significant investment in, and I am proud of a couple years ago that we put in place recognition of the work from home savings. But we haven't talked about that, even though we've spent exorbitantly on allowing people to work from home and be here. We haven't seen that. We haven't talked about the potential of freezing salaries at the upper echelon, including us as commissioners. Yet last year, we paid ourselves 12.5% increase as commissioners. We haven't discussed that. Why? Because it's not favorable to us. Let's put the constituents first. We haven't talked about the benefit that we've had by rolling our sleeves up and actually addressing healthcare costs. We have huge savings and incentives to be had there. And so I don't want to be all negative because there's some really good things in this plan. When I came in, we had 20 years deferred maintenance in our parks. We've since addressed those. Thank you. We did not have a plan for the replacement of the 1965 building. We now have a plan, a budget plan that doesn't shoulder a huge amount of that onto the taxpayers because we've been prudent as debt comes up. Thank you. We have invested in our staff. Thank you. We have invested in our public safety, including our law enforcement and our attorney's office. Thank you. And so saying that, if we don't agree to this 8-9, people aren't going to get paid and it's going to be a cliff and there's no other ways but to cut the football team or the parks or the libraries in our case, it just isn't very sincere in my opinion. And so I'm not supporting the 8.9%. I think that we should find solutions to get us to 2.5 to 3.5%. We have the benefit of $3.1 million of incremental new construction tax increase from year over year that we can spend prudently. And I think we have an over-reliance on year-end savings and vacancy savings, while our turnover rate hovers in the high double digits for the last 2 or 3 years. It's a disincentive for us to lower that, and that's impacting morale. So if we care about our employees and we care about the things that Commissioner Degler said, then maybe we should care about bringing that turnover rate down, because we have people that are covering for people for unfulfilled jobs. We have people that are covering for people that a role hasn't been filled. And that is a cost to the organization that you're not going to see in the 8.9%, but it's significant. There's an over-reliance on year-end savings. There's no way I can possibly support 8.9% for all those reasons. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, before I call for the vote, I just have to comment. Some of the comments that I just heard, to me, just sounds like a political campaign. I'll be perfectly honest. To say that we haven't done planning for the last 20 years, to say that since in the last 4 years is the first that we've looked at a new government center or revisions to it and planning for this and that, it just, to me, is not what it's actually reality. I challenge you to, if you really don't think that this is the levy that we should be setting, I challenge you to come up with reasonable is a kind of a word that I shouldn't be using. Come up with a plan that would realistically change it. And I think you'll get support for reasonable, like I say, plans that change it without drastically, you use the word cutting the football team. I didn't see any cutting the football team. Just so different perspectives on hearing the same message, you might say. So we have a motion. All in favor of the motion to approve the preliminary levy at this point, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2 vote. Item 7.2, Carver County Water Management Organization 2025 levy. Mr. Paul Moline. Mr. Moline.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Here to talk about the Watershed Management Organization levy. As a reminder, the board is the governing body for the Watershed Management Organization. Therefore, that's why we're in front of you today. We've been working on this similar to the general budget. We've been working on this since about April. We brought a preliminary recommendation to our Citizens Advisory Committee. We did that in May, and we updated them again in July. That was after the budget hearing. We were at a work session last week with the county board, and we're here today to ask for a preliminary levy for the WMO. Just a reminder what the WMO role is here. We are implementing the adopted water management plan that was last updated in 2020. That plan follows the requirements of state statute that we have a water management organization and implement the plan. There's 7 program areas outlined in that plan. Won't go through each one here. Pretty substantial work in each one of those areas. We do have highlights. We have an annual report that's on our website that kind of signifies all the things we've accomplished. This would be 2023. I'll just hit a couple highlights there. We continue to be under a lot of pressure from the growth of the county in our permitting area. Issued over 75 permits last year, and one note from that, I think 133 new acres of impervious across the county, rooftops, pavement, which generate all those permit activities. And again, a constant stress on staff time and those providing good service. Education area, reached out, all the different programs we have, over 28,000 members in that audience. And our monitoring program, we have about 145 different locations in the county conduct monitoring. That's just a quick snapshot. Again, refer to that annual report for more numbers. A reminder of the area that this tax impacts. It's the area in the aqua color here. The CCWMO covers about 320 square miles of the county. The other areas of the county are covered by watershed districts, and those boards set their own levies. So Minnehaha Creek, Riley Purgatory, Lower Minnesota Watershed District, and Buffalo Creek set their own levies for 2025. Some comparison of those. So this is a 2024 rate comparison and the total levy. I'll just kind of highlight a couple things here. The WMO rate for 2024 is 0.75, significantly lower than our other watershed districts. Riley, Purgatory, Minnehaha Creek, and Buffalo Creek are well over that number. The one that is a little bit lower is Lower Minnesota Watershed, but it's pretty similar to where we're at now. And again, I always compare Scott County, since they're the only other entity in the state where the WMO is contained within county government, and they have a higher rate than us and a higher levy as well. You'll note on these amounts here, this is the portion of the watershed districts that's collected in Carver County for their levy. The rest of those entities are collected in Hennepin and other counties. Where does our levy go? Where does our money go? A lot of it is for staffing and operations. This blue area here, combined with the allocation to the Soil and Water Conservation District, covers a big operational chunk. It's almost 3/4 of our levy. The rest goes to projects, the AIS program in purple here, and then our other program areas, monitoring, education, the biggest portion of those. So we've got two areas of the budget, the project and operations as mentioned. I'll just kind of go through each one here. The influence is on our project funding. Every year we solicit requests from the cities within the WMO for assistance with projects that they want to take on. For 2025, we received 3 requests, one from Chaska, one from Watertown, and one from Norwood. We look at the plan priorities in our water management plan. There's a long list of projects that have been adopted as part of that plan, and we look at those, which ones are priority, and try and fund those projects. We've been fairly successful with grants. We have over $500,000 in the next 2 years. And along with those grants, a 10% match requirement is there, so we need to come up with those numbers in our budget as well to match those grants. We'll quickly go through these city and partner requests. The Chaska submitted a request for a ravine, stabilizing a ravine that drains and dumps a lot of sediment into the Seminary Fen. Both the cities of Norwood and Watertown submitted projects to go along with some street and road projects they're doing to provide better treatment to their downtown areas that are currently untreated and flow into water bodies. The total that we're recommending is $75,000. Couple things of note here. The Norwood project, we have $15,000 set aside already. That we're recommending to fund that, but it won't be part of this request. So the request that we're recommending is a portion of the Chaska project and a portion of the Watertown project. I'll just go through these quick so you know where this money's going. The Norwood project, the area in yellow, collects a lot of stormwater, again, untreated, draining to Young America Lake. The city's proposing to put some treatment structures in as they rebuild those roads. Similarly with Watertown, they're updating their storm sewer, and all this area is untreated flowing to the Crow River, so there's a couple structures that'll go in here to treat that water. And then the Seminary Fen project, the city of Chaska has been fairly aggressive on getting these ravines stabilized. You'll notice here these gray hatched areas are sediment plumes that have developed over the years, dumping into the Seminary Fen as these ravines erode, carrying a lot of stormwater down those areas. The city completed this project over 5 years ago. They're moving on to the C2 ravine, as they're calling it, and this is the area they're looking for funding on. They got a significant state grant, and then we're helping to make up that gap. Other projects we're funding, we're assisting the Stolen Water Conservation District in what's known as the Conservation Reserve Program. They received some state money to help fund some of these efforts. These are projects that turn voluntarily turn ag land into conservation areas, and these are done in environmentally sensitive areas. Again, voluntary through landowners, and it helps pay for the cost of these contracts to set aside those areas. We're proposing to add additional 10,000 to beef up the amount of acreage that can get enrolled in CRP. The other project we're proposing to fund is a project around Lake Bavaria. We had 2 studies done, a subwatershed assessment that Stolen Water helped us complete for the area that drains to Lake Bavaria, city of Chaska, Victoria, and Lake Town Township. We also had several meetings with stakeholders this past winter, and some projects came out of those groups with their landowners that live around the lake. So we're looking to fund about $25,000 towards projects that have come out of those 2 processes. The WMOs received, again, mentioned we've done fairly well. We received $721,000 towards the fiscal year 24 and 25 from the state. This comes through Bowser. Some of that money will go directly to the city of Chaska. The rest, this $520,000, will go to 5 different projects in the WMO area. And again, we need a 10% match for that over those 2 years. So the project recommendation, fund $75,000, the city and partner requests, $35,000 of the WMO projects, matching that state money from Bowser, $35,000. Other grant match, we're proposing $30,000 to allow us to compete for other grants that'll come up in 2025. Again, we've been fairly successful, and those grants from the Bowser, State Bowser, and the DNR come up pretty regularly. We also have $15,000 for project maintenance. So with the projects we've built over the last 10, 15 years, they do need maintenance occasionally, so we do have a maintenance fund that we're putting that money into. The total for projects is $190,000, and that was not an increase from 2024. We tried to keep that flat. Operational cost influences, you just had a discussion about staff cost. The WMO pays a portion of the staff cost in the Planning and Water Management Department. It also pays a portion of the amount allocated to Stolen Water Conservation District, which goes to their staff and operations. So those same increases apply to the WMO as well. We do have some other influences. We have partner agreements with the city of Chaska, Lower Minnesota Watershed District, and some state agreements that we do work for. So that money is coming in, and that's stayed fairly constant. Some other influences, we have increasing engineering costs. So we do have a professional service agreements with engineers. We have not increased that amount for some of that assistance for many years, and we're proposing to increase that. And then the AIS increasing costs I have on the next slide here. The state aid that was allocated to every county in the state has not increased since Carver County started receiving that. That has remained flat. So along with sort of the increases in staff costs, we have to find other ways to make that up. We do charge some of that back to our partners, namely City of Chanhassen, Riley, Purgatory, and Lotus Lake Association. And also the WMO kicks in dollars to that AIS inspection program and staff costs to cover the whole AIS program. So we're proposing to increase WMO funding by a little over $3,000 to the program. There's also some additional dollars, $4,000, coming directly from the county to fund inspections at Lakes Minnewaska and Pearsons. So a summary of those operational cost increases, $62,779 for staff costs of the WMO portion, an increase of $8,874 for Stolen Water, $3,202 for AIS, $10,000 for engineering professional services. That brings our total increase to $84,855 for the levy, and that is the recommended increase, which brings the 2025 preliminary levy increase recommended to $1,038,284. That is at 8.9% levy increase from 2024. Impact on the average value home is $1.59, and if that equates to a 4.5% increase on that average value home. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll take questions.
Yeah, questions. The first one is kind of easy. First of all, the two projects, are the three projects you had. Two of them are the ones for the city of Chaska, Seminary Fence. Can you tell, I mean, there are three different ravines, it looks like, and the one they treated a couple years ago, or fixed a couple years ago, can you tell the difference in the amount of sediment that actually goes down in the seminary?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I believe so. So if you've ever been on this trail here, you can kind of see the impact that they made on this ravine was pretty significant. The slopes used to be really steep, trees falling in. Every time we got a big rain, more and more sediment washing out, and they kind of widened that ravine and stabilized. So I don't think they've seen, even with some of the big rains we've had recently, you know, those slopes have maintained and held in place. And that's really what makes up the difference. The cost to remove some of that sediment, stabilize those ravines, get rid of the trees is pretty significant, and that's why the cost is so high.
Yeah, it's good to see that it's actually through all those rains, it worked.
Yep.
And then the other project in Watertown and Norwood, untreated storm sewer used to go into the rivers. Were these facilities built before they could do that, you might say? I mean, now you're putting ponds to try to capture some of that sediment before it goes into the river.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So in some of these, you know, older downtown areas, there's not really room. First of all, they didn't install treatment
Right.
100 years ago.
Right.
That's where some of these areas were built. So these structures that get put in really collects a lot of sediment, and it's not full treatment, but it's kind of what you can do given the circumstance there. You're not going to try and put a pond in, you know, where there's buildings and pavement. So these underground treatment structures are a semi-fix to trying to get some treatment there.
So that's what they'll install underground, try to treat it underground?
Yes, yep.
And then the last just comment was Riley Purgatory, Bluff Creek, which two of us actually reside in, only 14 square miles, and yet they raise more money than Carver County does. If I read that, 320 square miles for the Carver County, and Riley Purgatory only has 14 square miles, but yet the total dollars is more.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, correct. So their rate is more than double, so that's part of it. But probably the biggest part is that their tax base in those areas is significantly more. So you think of Riley Purgatory in you know, most of Chanhassen, a lot of industrial, commercial, a much more dense area than the WMO in terms of development. So that tax base is a lot higher to begin with.
Well, keep up the good work. Other questions, comments for Paul? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the annual levy?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set the 2025 preliminary Carver County Water Management Organization levy at the $1,038,000.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Fahey, second by Commissioner Workman. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Paul. Item 7.3, the CDA 2025 budget levy. Allison, welcome Deputy Director.
Good morning, Chair Dagler and Commissioners. Sorry for my voice, I'm not feeling very well today.
Sorry to hear that.
I'm Allison Strike, the Deputy Director, and I want to introduce again the staff and the board I have with me today. I have our Director of Housing, Shanika Bumpers, our Director of Community Development, Melody Bridgman, Julie Frick, our Executive Director, Jeanette Meyer, our Director of Human Resources and Operations, Karen Reed, our Director of Finance. I have Greg Anderson, the Chair of our board, and Troy Williams with us.
I gotta ask before you, Julie, that wing, I didn't notice that before. Hopefully everything's going better. Thank you.
So just a little history on the CDA. The HRA was created in 1980. We received our first levy in 1992 for payable 1993 taxes. In 2001, the HRA was granted EDA powers, and in 2006, the HRA changed its name to Carver County Community Development Agency. The mission of the CDA is to provide affordable housing opportunities and foster community and economic development. The CDA is eligible for a maximum levy of $3,984,217, a $609,607 increase from the 2024 levy. The levy increase is based on the change in the county's estimated market value from 2023 to 2024, plus the additional levy amount that was not improved in 2024, which is $400,815. The CDA is requesting a levy of $3,583,402, which is a $208,792, or 6.9% increase from the 2024 levy. And the CDA board approved the budget that we brought to you at the preliminary meeting, a work session at our July 18th board meeting. So just a little bit of information about our community development area. The Community Growth Partnership Initiative was created and funded by the CDA in 2016. The goals of the program are to increase the tax base and improve the quality of life in Carver County through 3 specific strategies: affordable housing development, job creation and redevelopment, and community development through direct grants to the Carver County cities. To date, the CDA has awarded $206,990 in pre-development grants and $2,833 in community development grants to the cities and townships within the county. Next Stage. The CDA continues to support Next Stage in providing businesses with no-cost business consultation. Planning resources include writing a business plan, refining concepts, testing concept feasibility, and compiling financial projects. Starting business resources include helping select appropriate business entity, licensing, compliance, accounting system support, and direct financing. Once the business is up and running, support includes building revenue, managing costs, securing capital, and providing access to state and local financing. Through the end of Q2, Next Stage has served 24 clients and provided $225,000 in financing, which after leverage financing and equity totals $943,150. And then Choose Carver County. The CDA will continue to support and market the cities, chambers, local businesses, and partners through Choose Carver County. Through Q2 of 2024, there was 6,051 page views of the website. Choose Carver County Facebook had 1,105 profile visits and 22,900 post views. The Carver County Subsurface Treatment Systems. So the CDA partners with Carver County Environmental Services to provide residents with low interest loans for improvements to failing septic systems and wells. Currently for 2024, 4 loans have been processed and approved by Environmental Services, and 15 applications are in process. The CDA administers the Carver County Community Land Trust Program, which provides access to home ownership opportunities for low to moderate income households who might not otherwise be able to afford homes in the community. The land trust ensures permanent affordability by retaining ownership of the land and removing it from the real estate purchase. Homebuyers must be at or below 80% of area median income. received certification from a home buyer education course and be mortgage ready. Currently, there are 42 land trust homes located throughout Carver County in Chaska, Cologne, Mayer, Victoria, Waconia, and Watertown. Since its inception, the land trust has served over 74 families. An additional 5 homes are in development in Chaska and Watertown that will be added to the land trust. At our August board meeting, the CDA awarded a contract to DDK Construction to start the renovation of the Ernst home and add 3 additional single-family homes for a total of 4 in that location. The CDA is currently carrying about $250,000 in costs for that project and will carry the bulk of the just over $2 million to complete this project, as most of our funding and reimbursements will not occur until we complete the project and sell the homes. The Minnesota Housing Rehab Program, we administer the Minnesota Housing Rehabilitation Loan and Emergency and Accessibility Loan programs throughout Carver County. The program provides deferred loan financing to eligible low-income homeowners who are unable to secure home improvement financing in the private sector. Funds may be used for basic home improvements that directly affect the home's safety, habitability, and energy efficiency. The Local Housing Trust Fund. The CDA dedicated $100,000 in 2024 to a local housing trust fund. The CDA is working on guidelines for this program for a homebuyer initiative for both first time and first gen. In December 2023, the County Board passed Ordinance 104-2023 establishing the Local Housing Trust Fund to be administered by the CDA. We're currently in the process of implementing guidelines for the first-time homebuyer initiative and hope to have that program up and running by the end of the year. We also intend to implement a first-gen homebuyer program, and staff have been meeting with organizations within the community such as Latino Voices and Mi Casa to understand what is needed by the community prior to writing the guidelines. In order to be thoughtful and intentional around what is really needed, this program will take longer to implement. This is just a list of all of the current CDA properties, what type of, whether they're general occupancy, senior, the number of units, and then either when we built or acquired them. So we currently have a total of 735 units owned and managed by the CDA. And then the newest addition to our portfolio was the purchase of 870 Arboretum as part of our partnership with Carver County. This is just a map of our CDA properties. An ARPA funds update. This is a slide on the ARPA and the Carver County CDA Housing Project Fund money. Humanity Alliance and Bluff Creek Rehab are both paid and complete. West Creek Apartments is officially open and residents have moved in. I saw Susie at the groundbreaking last week, and I think she said they would be at 10 of the units filled by the end of this month. The Rural Development Rehab is nearly
When you
completed.
say this month, you meant August.
Yes, last
Yeah.
month.
All right, okay.
Yes, I forget, we're in September.
Uh-huh.
The Rural Development Rehab is nearly completed and all county funds have been expended. Carver Oaks, we're targeting an early start in December or January with a closing on March 1st. Carver Place, that project closed a couple weeks ago and we had our groundbreaking last week, so work has started at the site. In Trails Edge Senior, we submitted an application in July and we will find out in December if that project is funded. So Carver Place, again, we had our groundbreaking last week. We have a 12-month construction schedule with an anticipated opening of September 1st of 2025. It will consist of 60 units with 15 one-bedrooms, 32 bedrooms, and 15 three-bedrooms. All households will be at or below 60% of area median income, which is currently $52,500 for a household of 1 and $86,460 for a household of 6. With further income targeting for households at or below 50% of area median income. Additionally, there'll be 7 units of Section 811 rental assistance. So Section 811 is where the head, co-head, or spouse is between the ages of 18 and 61 and has a disability. Households pay 30% of their income towards rent and the rest is subsidized. And we'll also have 7 units of high-priority homeless units subsidized with housing supports through the county, and the CAP agency will be the service provider. This is our final funding structure. Minnesota Housing restructured their funding to replace the home funds, which was federal money, with what they are now calling ERA 2 funds, which is part of the remaining housing assistance funding they received from the federal government. So we are down from 10 funding sources to 9. And then to give you an idea of what it costs for the CDA to take a project from pre-development through development and closing, at the time of closing, the CDA was carrying a total cost of $943,061, with another $658,000 that we will not get reimbursed until Draw 2 at the end of this month. Carver Oaks will be a 43-unit senior property serving households at or below 50% of area median income, which is currently $43,500 for a household of 1 and $62,100 for a household of 4. This project will consist of 32 one-bedroom units and 11 two-bedroom units. There will be 7 units of VASH funding, which is project-based vouchers for homeless veterans and services provided by the VA. Residents pay 30% of their income in those units, and the rest of it is subsidized. This is our current funding structure for this project, which will most likely change by the time we get to closing. Our GC went out for bid on September 13th and expect to have, actually they have bids back on the 13th of September, and the CDA is currently carrying about $241,000 on this project, which will increase up and until closing. And then we added some slides per our discussion from the work session just about around the housing demand calculations that came out of the Maxfield housing study. So they are projecting a demand for 31,694 housing units in Carver County between 2023 and 2040, with a little bit of a breakdown between what they refer to as owner and renter. So 20,402 will be general occupancy owner, 5,130 general occupancy renter, and then they have active adult senior at 3,699 and serviced enhanced senior at 2,463. This one breaks it up a little bit more between owner and rental, with 16,208 for detached single family, and 4,194 for for sale multifamily, which would be townhouses and row houses and condos. 2,264 market rate, 1,268 affordable, and 1,598 subsidized, and that's where somebody pays 30% of their income towards rent, and the rest is subsidized generally by the federal local government. To the right, it's just excess senior housing demand broken down by the different types of senior housing as they are defined in the housing study. And this last slide gives you a breakdown of the demand by submarket. As I mentioned, when we presented on the housing study, Maxfield broke Carver County down into 9 submarkets, grouping Hamburg and Norwich, Young America, and Mayer, New Germany, and then the townships within each of those submarkets. An office space update. Staff continue to look at 41 PB Road. When a new building was out of reach, we reconfigured the main office with cubicles as a temporary fix. This, however, will not be sustainable for the long term. We do not have additional funding in our levy request this year, as we are not actively seeking a new space due to capacity of staff and projects that we have going on. We do continue to discuss new office and warehouse space as we continue to grow our portfolio and programming. The owner of the space at PV Road has reached back out to staff several times. We've viewed this project with other organizations that are looking to expand their space and are interested in partnering. We are still in the preliminary discussion with other organizations and are working with the owner to engage their architect for some space planning. And we will rely on Ellers for potential financing options when and if we get to a place on the PV Road location. If we feel we'd like to further explore the PV Road location, we have preliminary numbers from Ellers. That includes the CDA utilizing $1 million in cash as a down payment, and that funding is already accounted for in our updated agency cash flow. The CDA currently pays rent in the amount of $73,000 per year that would be reallocated to that debt service on a new building. We'd be able to rent out our current space, and excess rental income could be contributed to the debt service on the new building. And additionally, there's a current tenant in the warehouse space, and their rent would pay for part of the debt service for the building based on the initial productions. And we would explore a lease extension with that current tenant. Additionally, in working with community partners and their need for space to lease, we would work with Ellers to fund this space without an increase to the levy. If we cannot make this project work, we would include funding for a new space as part of our 2026 levy increase request. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
I'm gonna say, with her voice that way, she might have turned it over a little bit sooner.
Good morning, Chair Degler and Commissioners. Karen Reed, Finance Director. On to the budget numbers. 2025 budget and levy. For the 2025 budget, the Carver County CDA is requesting a levy of $3,583,402, a 6.19% levy increase, which is $208,792 increase from the 2024 approved levy. The impact on a $471,900 valued home is an increase of $1.98 for a total of $69.53. The total 2025 budget for the CDA is $17,072,256, of which the levy represents 21%. Funds from the levy increase would be utilized to offset increased payroll and benefits costs. Oops, there we go. This slide just shows the levy funding change from the original levy and budget request that we put forth in comparison to the levy that was approved in 2024. You can see our original request was $609,607. We are currently coming in requesting $208,792, and you can see all of it would be allocated towards offsetting administrative costs. This slide just shows the breakdown of when we had to cut the budget. These are the categories that we went through to reduce. So from the Local Housing Trust Fund, we reduced by $267,500. Community Growth Partnership Initiative, $82,500. Reduction in staff training of $20,815, and reduce the greater MSP by not paying for membership, $30,000. All total, it comes to $400,815, bringing us to our current levy request of $208,792. This is just a pie chart of our revenue sources. You can see that state, local, and operating represents 22%, the levy represents 21%, and our housing revenues represent 57%. Here we have our 2025 requested budget, the revenue categories. You can see there are 3 of them. We're projecting administrative revenues to go up by $452,123. Our housing revenues to go up by $267,832, and the requested levy of $208,792, totaling $928,747. 2025 requested budget expenditures, also 3 categories. Administrative operating, we're projecting a $660,915 increase. Housing expenditures of $267,832, and our bond obligations stay stable. Also for a total of $928,747. This slide just shows our levy history going back to 2014. You can see our current request represents a 6.19% increase for a total of $3,583,402. The action we are requesting at this point is a motion to approve the resolution approving the 2025 proposed budget and payable 2025 levy of the Carver County Community Development Agency and certifying said levy to the county auditor. At this point, we open it to questions.
Questions? Commissioner Fahey.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Allison. Allison, can you give us a little more backstory on Carver Place, on how long it took to acquire that land and the partnership that we had with the city of Carver to get to where we are today?
Yes, did we purchase that in 2008 or 2009?
2008.
2008. It was 36 acres total. We did a PUD with the city, so we have some single-family homes. What's now the Park and Ride, the Carver Crossings parcel, and then now what it will be Carver Place and Carver Oaks. So it's been a long time in the making. We've tried multiple ways since we purchased that land to get the building funded. Just me alone, prior to me, we tried to get it funded. I think I did a couple LCDA applications to Met Council. Julie looked at multiple options for getting it funded, and I think it took us 3 rounds with Minnesota Housing to get it funded.
And just how complex
Yeah.
these projects are, and to get them
Yes,
in
it's
the
not
ground
only
and-
the different funding sources going into it, but the level of compliance that it takes after the building's up and running to make sure all the households are certified. Our equity investor, and, we have a 300-page limited partnership agreement with our equity investor that requires all this reporting with them, quarterly and yearly. Carver Place and Carver Oaks will both have to have their own single audit that will then get rolled into the CDA audit.
And then just the relationship that you've built with the city of Carver and their city council have been very supportive. And
Oh, yeah, it's been great. They implemented the water and sewer trunk fee waiver program, similar to what Waconia implemented, that helped us get Trails Edge South funded. That got us points to help us get Carver Place and Carver Oaks funded as well.
And as we go through the process, and you said in our earlier discussion with the overall budget that we're talking about, and having more discussions on it to finalize that when you were here last week, and there was, and I had shared this with the CDA board at the CDA meeting, of not being in support of the 18 or the 21% levy increase. And so it's encouraging to see you come back with this, and I know that there's a comfort level of how comfortable are you with the 6.19% increase.
It's not ideal, but I think we'll figure it out how to make it work. We looked for ways to not let it impact staff, just because the ripple effect of not being able to be fully staffed, especially when it comes to your point, to the compliance of these projects. It's really, really important that we make sure we stay in compliance, because we don't ever want to jeopardize our tax credits.
Other questions and thoughts? I have a couple easy ones, you might say. The land trust. You talked about the land trust. That's still tax generating properties. They're
Correct.
not, it's not,
They
okay.
pay full taxes, correct.
And another question, you mentioned first gen. I think this is about the first year I've heard that phrase as a homeowner, first gen.
First generation homeowners, generally speaking, it means that your parents or your grandparents haven't owned a house. And then sometimes it means that if they did, they lost it in foreclosure.
So I'm just trying to relate that. I would be a second gen, because my grandparents on my one side never owned, and since my folks were able to buy a place, they would be, so I would second gen. That's interesting. And another comment, we go by the CDA office building every Sunday coming from the cemetery, What's going on there? You're doing
Oh.
some,
That's been something we've been trying to get done, I think, for like 6 years. So we've had an issue with the block blowing out. So we're doing it in 3 different phases, taking down the block and replacing it with new retaining wall blocks. So I don't know if you ever noticed before, there'd be like little sections where the block would be gone.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. So six-ish years in the making, we finally were able to get it done, so.
Well, congratulations on that. But like I say, my wife asked me, hey, you know the CDA, what's going on there? And I can't answer it.
Yep.
But, and then you have the board chair in the background there. Is there anything Mr. Anderson would like to inform us on?
No, I think Allison's done a great job summarizing it, and if you guys have any humanity, let that poor woman sit down.
Great comment. Any other final comments? If not,
Mr.
the
Chair,
requ-
Before you
Mr.
move on, excuse me, just want to remind you, it was pointed out in the slide, but the county board has the authority over the levy, but not necessarily the budget via statute. So the budget would have to go back to the CDA board for approval, and I'm assuming that you'll make the same recommendations.
Correct, at the
CDA board.
September board meeting.
Good point. Who would like to make the motion to approve the motion that was action requested? It was on the slide right before.
Mr.
You
Chair,
wanna back it up?
I'll be a motion maker today.
There we go.
There we go. I'm going to motion in support of unanimous CDA board approval for a $609,607 levy increase, which is the max levy, which would take it to a $3.98 million levy increase, and in support of the things that you guys brought into the boardroom the last time. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's not what's, the action that was requested. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? For a third time, is there a second to that motion? Seeing no second, the motion dies for a lack of a second. The motion requesting the approval that they just brought forward. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make that a motion to approve the resolution for the 2025 proposed budget.
I would second.
Motion by Commissioner Fahey, seconded by Commissioner Lynch to approve the resolution approving the 2025 proposed budget and payable 2025 levy for the Carver County Community Development Agency. Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ruderman.
a comment I made, I think it was in work session, so it didn't make it to the camera, but we have 2 responsibilities as a Carver County board. That's 1, to approve your budget, and 2, to appoint your board. And your board is a board of 5, CDA. I think you're a board member, correct? Mr. Anderson, you're a board member, 5 of you. So we appoint that board, and that board came with a unanimous recommendation that we were rejected as a board. So I take issue with that. I also think that our liaison to that CDA board had a hand in motioning for 3 of those 5 board members, so essentially controlling those 3 votes. And so I would ask in future process, out of respect to the CDA and the board members that we appoint, that we give them direction in advance as to what that motion or that levy should be versus asking them to come forth with their best foot and then come back and undermining more or less that board. And so I have one more question, if I may, as part of the discussion.
Commissioner Ruderman.
Allison, I don't know how to vote on this one because I support the full max levy for all the reasons you gave. I support a path forward to a goal line. I take Commissioner Fahey's comments as truth. It took 15 years to acquire that land and other things, but if we were accelerated with money and supported a board, we can get to a better outcome that you guys have largely been hamstrung to do. And so I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, how do you want me to vote? Do you want me to vote no because I'm in support of the full thing, or yes because this gets us to a B plan?
You can answer if you choose. You don't have to answer.
I just think it puts us in a really tough position to ask somebody to deliver a levy and ask them to do a lot of things, but not help them with support in front of the room. And so that's why I made my motion. Those are my comments.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll have to comment. I did talk to Allison ahead of time before, and she shared some of the same comments that you shared with us. I can understand that. I know where she's coming from, and I thoroughly respect that. But it's a two-way phone. I've been told many times, It's a two-way phone. If somebody has an issue with you, they can give me a call, which is fine. Or if I have an issue with them, it's a two-way call, I can talk to them. It's not just her responsibility to talk to us, it's not just our responsibility. I didn't mean to say her, I meant CDA board.
Commissioner
and-
Dagler, I will say, Administrator Hemsey and Nick have already reached out about setting a meeting with us, I think in June of next year, to prepare for the 2025 levy present, or 2026 levy presentation.
Thank you, that's good comments, because the simple lack of communication should not be an excuse in today's society. So I'll take part of that blame, not knowing exactly when this was set. There was one meeting that Commissioner Fahey, as our liaison, was not able to make. And he contacted me as the alternate, and I had full intentions, but as everybody knows, life gets in the way once in a while, and I was not able to make it. I have no idea if that's the meeting that this presentation was set, but if it was, then I apologize for not being at that meeting. But like I say, hopefully we'll communicate better in the future so that this doesn't come up with this situation. Any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor, motion made and seconded. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work, and get better.
I'm going home to bed.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion to recess as the county board and convene as the Carver County Regional Rail Authority.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Ruderman to recess and readjourn, or reconvene. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now are acting as the regional rail. Mr. Lyndon Rogent, our engineer.
Oh, good morning,
Rail
Mr.
engineer, did you get that?
Railroad engineer. Yep, I'll take it. I
Okay.
like railroads.
Okay.
Before you today, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, is a recommendation to increase the regional rail's preliminary tax levy by $18,902. That would be an 8.9% increase from 2024. Briefly, there's a table on the screen that kind of shows our cash flow. As you can see from row one, the majority of the budget is spent on salaries, and like other budgets, there is a significant increase in salaries and benefits, so that takes the majority of the funding. The rest of the funding is used for stewardship on our railroads, and as you know, we are acquiring another piece, the Lake Minnetonka LRT line from Hennepin County. That will come with a grant to do some stewardship, but there will be increased needs on vegetation management next year as well. So that is our recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for Lyndon? Since we heard this last week or at a work session, it's not a surprise. Is there a motion to?
So move, Mr. Chair. To
Second.
approve.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Workman to approve the levy that the Regional Railroad has proposed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to come?
So move.
Second.
Okay.
To adjourn as the
who
Carver
made the
County
motion?
Regional Rail Authority
Motion by
and
Lynch,
reconvene
second by
as the county
Uderman.
board.
To adjourn as the regional rail and reconvene as the county board. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now acting as the county board. Administrator Hemsey, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to note again, we're in the process of implementing a new software called Civic Clerk. So that's for managing your agendas. And for all practical purposes, you won't see much change, at least up front. You'll see the same similar packet come to you. There's a few quirks in the system that don't allow us to do a couple things. One is to not add our goals and sort them by our organizational goals. And the other one's a little quirky too. It's, we can't put page numbers in there. It's really built more around.
You gotta have page numbers.
I know. Well, I'm hoping you get used to it. I have the same thought, but ultimately and this won't come up front, but ultimately what we'd like you to do is to get you used to that system and to access it electronically, and that would allow you to do a number of things, including automatically clicking to a reference on an agenda to the actual item, et cetera. We're not going to do that up front. As staff, we're just getting used to this thing.
How much are we paying for this? Or don't even have a.
You'll like it. You'll love this. I know change is hard, but really, our existing package that was constructed through a software called SharePoint was about ready to collapse on us, literally, with no support. So behind the scenes, again, all that's going on. There's a lot of work. We'll also roll it out with the Planning Commission and perhaps a few other public meetings, but it definitely should be more efficient and
What's the
effective.
timetable for the rollout?
Good question. So September 24th work session would be the first one. So as with any new system, probably going to be a few bugs in there, but we definitely picked that out because it's a relatively simple packet to put together. Chris is doing a nice job getting up to speed on it. It definitely will help her package the agenda in the end, but for others, it's a pretty significant change. But again, I just want to let you know that because you might see some different things come through. But for all practical purposes, I think we should be in pretty good shape. And then again, as we move beyond into the next steps, I understand. We'll get you. I'm kind of the same way. I like the hard copy, kind of old school too. But if you want, you'll have that electronic those additional capabilities to see additional things and reference quicker. So stay tuned. We'll get you up to speed on training, but that won't be for a while. We're taking this first stage with staff to put it together.
And with that,
That's it.
Commissioner Workman.
I see a member of the audience who stuck out this whole meeting, and I'm wondering if his concerns were taken care of today? You, sir?
I was waiting for Highway 18, the purchase of the land.
Didn't we do that in the consent
Was that
agenda?
part of the consent?
Yep,
That was the addition.
that was approved.
So thanks for saying.
You wanted it approved?
So
You could have left about 2 hours ago.
you waste.
I enjoyed it.
I have was it the amended?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a hard copy here if you want it. And there's some in the back.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
With that, is there a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Workman, seconded by,
I'll second. But I'm with you. We need page numbers.
Yes.
If nothing else, we could have Hemsey mark them individually with a pen.
We might have to manually.
Page numbers, you just can't jump to them.
oh, I don't care if we jump to them, but I want page
Are there-
25.
They won't list on the front, but there's gonna be the full page numbers and everything. It's just how we're gonna get to the,
So there'll be actual page numbers on the
yeah.
bottom.
Yep.
Oh, I misunderstood that.
I have a sample on my desk.
You're a hero.
See, she fixed it already without me knowing it.
Okay, there's no discussion on the motion. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.